matchups as well. Let's move on to the next match of the day. It's going to be FroStee versus tom60229. Players are lock-loaded, ready to go as well. I love it. FroStee there bringing an extremely standard lineup, although he has told me, and I honestly did not realise, that the Holy Wrath Paladin he's bringing, it's the first time he's played Holy Wrath Paladin this season. Whereas last season, if you remember, he played it a good amount and had some success with it as well. So he just said this is the first time he's played it, but he's put a lot of practice into it this week. He thinks it's good, and he is very focused on not getting relegated. Obviously, he wants to qualify to top 4, but priority number 1, don't get out of that league. Don't get out of GM. Whereas Tom, bringing almost his signature Warlock with a Plague of Flames, has had a couple of stumbling blocks over the past couple of weeks. But with his lineup again, I kind of just like Tom's lineup overall. If I think I said it every week we've seen him, but if you're bringing Zoo, I like Tom's build of Zoo the best, and he keeps building the double egg build with this Plague of Flames in there as well. So I think what Tom is trying to achieve, he's doing that well. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to continue the good streak he had. Yeah,
it feels like he's starting to be left behind a little bit in terms of the meta, because Asia Pacific for the last 2-3 weeks especially has been Zoo City. We've just seen a whole bunch of Zoo, despite the fact that I believe in Americas last week there were no Warlocks full stop, let alone just Zoos knocking about there. So I think Tom, with his Zoo week after week after week, the general consensus, he may of course disagree with it, is that instead of Zoo, he should be bringing Shaman. Like the standard theory is that Quest Shaman is just the stronger deck at the moment. There's obviously positives and negatives. I think that the Warlock deck probably has a slightly better shot against Priest, because generally the Quest Shaman is very bad against Priest, and also a little bit better against Druid. But then I think you're taking a pretty big hit against Warrior in particular, whereas of course Quest Shaman is very, very good against that. And also just kind of general all-round. I think the Quest Shaman has higher chances of just taking matchups it shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's wherever you personally draw the line on what is classed as the correct thing to do, in the fact that if you say, Shaman's the best deck to bring instead of Warlock, then if you're expecting everyone to bring Shaman, then everyone will be prepped to play against Shaman. And then if you don't bring it, there's kind of like a gap that exists, and that gap is not always good. Sometimes if you go too far into that thought pattern, then you are actually just not playing the best deck because you think it's right, even though it isn't necessarily.
Fair.
But if everyone's prepped and building lineups against a deck that I think has been in Grandmasters every single week of Season 2, then I'm never too upset to see people go a different route, because I think sometimes you do need to bring slightly worse decks overall to actually gain an advantage, because on average you've got to say if everyone queues the same decks and you're the one bringing something different, if everyone's prepped for those decks and you're over here, I would like to give the advantage to the person who's the odd one out.
Exactly. It's like how Rock is strictly the best one to go for. Sometimes you've got to go Scissors, though, Yeah, it's just strictly worse.
Mix it up.
Sometimes it wins, though.
In the light's name.
Here we go. Priest versus Warrior. Going to be game number 1 between tom60229 and FroStee. And already FroStee going off with the double 1-drop. Looks pretty good to me.
You generally love to see that as the Warrior, especially as with the pick of the Town Crier. I think generally the more important of the 2 1-drops to find. He is, of course, fairly likely to find the Restless Mummy. No tomb can hold it. We've seen it time and time again in this matchup. It's
Speaking of mummies, I was playing a bit of Rogue the other day. I played the Feral Cat.
What minion did you get, Raven?
Can you guess? You can have one guess.
One guess, not 10?
No, one.
Was it a mummy who is particularly generous, perhaps?
It was, yeah.
Wow.
I played it. It was actually pretty good. Honestly, it was sick. I think it was more sick because my opponent played badly into it. I don't know why we're not in game now. Something's happening.
Something's gone wrong.
But it's come back to us, so you've got us to look out for a few more minutes. I apologise if you're not too impressed with that. Yeah, just look at Derek. The younger. There you go. How can you be unhappy with that very strange smile in the camera? But yeah, what was I saying? Oh, I was just telling a stupid story about the mummy. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, that sounds
and my
about right.
opponent just traded tons of stuff into it and like played one minion. I was like, wait a minute, is this card good? And I was like, nope, every other time I've seen it ever, it sucked. So I'm not doing that again. I think I should just take Feral Cat out of Rogue. Full stop.
Yeah, Generous Mummy is not good for winning games. It's great for gaining Twitter followers, though. Like when you post it, your opponent rolls it, and then the Druid decks that run like the Auctioneer package like can draw their entire deck literally in one turn off of it.
Yeah, I do love the fact that the only thing that gains more traction is it's not great plays. It's when everything goes terribly wrong.
Oh yeah.
Just like when I tweeted when I did the Plague of Murlocs on a priest board, that was literally about to kill me. I was like, okay, Murlocs. 4 Murlocs were like 2 Warbringers, a Scargill, and something else, and I was like, I'm dead anyway. That was like turn 4.
Yeah.
It hurt my soul. So yeah, I don't know why we've stopped. I'll find out, or we'll try to if production just let us know. But yeah, in terms of this lineup, I don't really know what's going on because the Warrior versus Priest, I feel, is still just as 50-50 as it gets. But do you think anyone's really got an advantage here? Do you think this Zoo and Holy Wrath Paladin is going to... Well, I guess it's the Zoo, really, because they're both playing Holy Wrath Paladin. Do you think like the differences, the Zoo and the Shaman, are going to make the biggest difference in the matchup?
Honestly, I think the Zoo may let Tom down. Because talking about some of the matchups that he gets an advantage of bringing Zoo over Shaman is against the Druid. FroStee's not brought Druid in his lineup, which I actually am kind of on board with. I really don't mind the decks, the deck lists, or the lineup, sorry, that are omitting Druid altogether. Also against the Shaman, I think that's the other reason to bring Quest Shaman instead of Zoo, is you can have a mirror as opposed to Zoo versus Shaman, which I think generally is considered with the Mogus in there, all the lackeys that Shaman can generate. You're probably just falling a little too far behind.
Yeah, I think it's, from what I know of other players who played the matchup way more than me, it's pretty miserable as the Zoo, because everything you do, they also do, except they have MC techs and Mogus and you don't. So you lose.
You just lose.
And that's it. Yeah, so apologies about just stopping the game there. We're going to go and find out what's going on. So in the meantime, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back.
That's the extra damage.
That is the extra damage. That is the extra damage. Power Shield is lethal.
Did he not get it off?
Okay, yeah, second digits. Re-injuring in the Nephset. Re-injuring in the Nephset is the same damage. Oh, no! No!
He didn't get the attack off. He's torn. He doesn't know what to do.
All right, sure.
That's one way to end it.
Fine. I guess that works too.
Pretty long-winded way to go about finding the end of this game.
For 3 chances.
Yes.
I choose death. Oh, what is Hearthstone, Derek?
Absolute god, Alutemu, hands up to the sky.
Oh, the Shaxi, I think when he plays it, will need to have an answer to shit.
Oh! He's got the answer.
Yeah, because he can...
Warpath trade and then the rush or whatever. That's game!
Do you like Zoo too, John?
I love Zoo a lot. Practice
Thank you. I love you too.
Hiya!
Octosauri lethal! No! That's the nightmare! But he just loses now. He's got 8 arms, he just thwacked all of them once. I've got 2 left.
What a way to go out. Unfortunate.
Stand up on the casting chair with me, TJ.
Nope.
Stand!
I think it would collapse.
Casters, rise up. No, it would. There's much more important things at stake, people. Come on! Is the
Results. They're a lovely thing.
25.
Oh my gosh. No way.
Well known for their top-notch performance and long-time efforts in the local fan community. We've created a special and memorable Hearthstone-themed weekend.
Welcome to the Tombs of Terror. My name is Regis Jackson, and I'm going to be your guide through this adventure. If you didn't know, the Tombs of Terror are available to play right now, starting with Wing 1, the Lost City of Tolvir. But before you enter, be warned, there are some terrifying things in the Tombs of Terror, and you might just need my help.
This city is ours.
Not only are plague lords running rampant, but there's a twist. A terrifying twist. And it's murlocs. That's right, murlocs are everywhere. The twist for this wing is the plague of murlocs, which means murlocs have invaded each deck. Anytime you draw the surprise Murlocs card from your deck, you're going to be summoning a random amount of Murlocs, which can be really helpful, but so will the opposing bosses. So things can out of control really quickly. But thankfully, I know a guy. It's my cousin, Reno Jackson, and I think he can help. Now, Reno is a proven adventurer, but he'll still need some tools and allies if he's going to succeed in this one. The first thing he'll need is a signature treasure. There are 6 treasures to choose from, but you'll have to unlock some of them by completing tasks in the Tombs of Terror. But for starters, Reno's lucky hat will serve you just fine, enabling you to do some crazy stuff with spell damage and also getting some stats onto the board early in the game. But once you've unlocked it, my favorite treasure for this wing is the Gatling Wand. This is an incredible way to remove your opponent's minions from the board, which makes it perfect for the Lost City. Reno will also encounter some treasures along the way, and I've identified a few that'll really help in this wing. Up first is Canopic Jars, and this is a wonderful way to turn all these free murlocs you'll be summoning onto the board into incredible legendary minions instead, which can be swingy enough to win you games fast or just help you recover a board state late in the game. I also love the Titanic Ring, which gives your minions +1 health and taunt, which when you're summoning this many minions, gets a lot more value than normal. So now that you've got Reno on your side, the next thing you need to know are the bosses. There are lots and lots of bosses on your way to defeating the Plague Lord, but I've got some tips about the biggest and scariest ones. The first is the Sinkhole and its horrifying hero power, which if you're not careful will rapidly destroy your entire deck, leaving you without enough resources to overcome it. That means you need to beat it quickly. You should also be wary of General Husam, who gives all of his minions rush by default. He might overwhelm you before you have a chance to kill him. And then finally, we can't forget about the Plague Lord itself, a 3-part boss with 300 health. And although that might seem daunting, don't forget, if you're defeated the first time, you can come back in to the Tombs of Terror, and the Plague Lord will be at the health you left it at. Knowing its hero powers ahead of time can help. The first requires you to kill enough Murlocs to actually damage the boss. The second will summon Scaly Golems, which buff all Murlocs on board, making trades very interesting and often difficult. And then finally, once you've pushed it past 100 health, be careful, the Plague Lord will be able to remove all minions from the board after discounting its hero power sufficiently. Now, keep in mind that discount does not stick through multiple uses, so you can reload boards somewhat safely, but you still have to be mindful of running out of minions before you can kill the boss. Okay, folks, I think that's everything you need to know to safely navigate the Lost City of Tolvir. But stay tuned. My friend Sir Regis Mergleton might have some tips for future wings in the Tombs of Terror.
We apologise about the break there as we had to step away from game number 1. I'll just give you a quick rundown of what happened. Basically, FroStee accidentally queued the wrong deck, which meant that he does not receive a game loss. It is a warning, as it's the first time it has happened. If it happens again, it does transfer into a game loss, but we give everyone a chance. Everyone can misclick and click the wrong thing, and the game was what, turn 1, turn 2 or something, so it's not as if there was anything dramatically crazy going on in the game anyway. So it's effectively going to be a regame, and I believe we're going to be getting into that very, very quickly for you guys, so sorry about the delay. Worked out really good timing. So we're in. Let's go. It's going to be game number 1 again of FroStee versus tom60229. FroStee on the warrior on the top, Tom on the priest.
Well, this time we've got our eyes on you, FroStee, all right? Tread lightly. Stay frosty.
And just in case you're wondering about, well, FroStee queued Warrior before as well. I think he queued the wrong version of Warrior, not his Grandmasters submitted Warrior list. So in case you're thinking, he's doing it again! Yeah. He's not.
I would imagine FroStee is a custom deck 1 through 4 gamer, such as myself.
Yeah. And you're like, I've got to go in collection, remember which one's which.
Yep. And I never learn, and I never will. Already a somewhat interesting choice there by Tom. He could have, of course, gone for Coin Told It into Ritualist for the highest tempo, I suppose. But with the Circle of Healing in hand, I was going to say he could just hold it and play around the weapons project that FroStee has 2 of. But instead, he's not even going with the Circle of Healing. He's properly holding on to these cards.
Yeah, just waiting and waiting, right? Now he can circle into fire. He does know that there's almost... almost certainly, maybe that sounds a bit strong. Yeah. Extremely likely that a Ruthless Mummy is going to be in hand because he has access, or he has played the Town Crier, 2 Ruthless Mummies, and Relentless.
I like that.
Ruthless Mummy.
It's not Relentless either.
Restless.
The whole family
I'm just
is mummies.
saying words. Ruthless, Restless, Relentless.
This sounds awesome.
Cards in the future.
It's like a sick metal song. Heavy metal. The Ruthless Mummy.
But anyway, that 4-drop that has Rush, basically, he has in his hand, which means some of this will get answered, but he has got this Amit out now, which is why he held onto that coin.
Yeah. And it works out very nicely for Tom. We're looking at, even with a full trade scenario, which would get Amit down to, what, 4 health? Still a 4 health Acolyte, sorry. I'd take that.
Or also just an Effort set.
Sure. Yeah.
Resetting.
Heal it back up.
Full trade scenario, not to be confused with a full trade scenarios, which would be different because we're not seeing Druid. They've queued the deck incorrectly. Just the wrong class now. It's getting worse.
And we see FroStee throwing down here the Jack of Hearts.
Yeah.
Very strong card in this situation.
And Tom responds with a birthday card, which is really playing a different game than everyone else.
Yeah, you've activated Season's Greetings.
I really want to do this. So just like, you just activate the sarcasm effect of my Get Well Soon card.
But you fool, I have 6 stamps on my Starbucks gift card, which counteracts your Season's Greetings Christmas card.
Yeah. You will have no spiced pumpkin latte now. Go straight to the graveyard. We are literally just coming up with Hearthstone's next expansion right now. I hope we're getting paid extra for this.
Saviors of coupon.
League of Explorers are like 90. They're just going to the shops together with all their coupons. Silence going to come down now as we talk about actual cards that exist. Onto the Acolyte, which is going to reduce FroStee's card draw down, but FroStee actually has, I would argue, maybe even more than enough resources right now to deal with what Tom is doing. Tom putting forward a very aggressive front here and a pretty strong board, but we can see there are some pretty good cards.
Yeah, and this is exactly what FroStee set up for on the previous turn. By not clearing with the Restless Mummy and instead developing his 1-drops, he can play the Brawl, hope to win it, and he is rewarded for his setup last turn.
I've been here from the beginning, guys.
Hear ye. Hear ye, guys.
Yeah, wait, what? The town's gone?
Just whacking people with his bell.
What, the town's gone because he murdered them all?
Well, he did, right? He brawled them.
Maybe he was just in it. Maybe he was just hid under the chair. You know, lifts his head up over and he's like, oh, everyone's gone. Sweet.
It's true. Survival of the fittest.
Or the luckiest.
In the Witchwood. Yeah, fair.
It's going to be just a heal for Tom now. He does have that regenerate, which is, again, just a tom60229 special.
Yeah.
But
absolute disaster right now, though.
Not going to be that good. Oh.
Snippety snappity.
Get the mortuary on the go.
Yeah. See, they've updated the search feature so that snip with an I instead of a 1 will now actually find snip snap.
Okay. Did you read the thing about what it's called in South America?
I did.
Click Clack.
Click Clack, which I think is a very cute name.
Your little brother. Maybe the 1-1s could be called Click Clacks.
Click Clacks.
Snip snap, death rattles in some Click Clacks.
In our canon, in our head canon.
Oh yeah, in our new expansion for Hearthstone. Imagine at BlizzCon, just me and Derek walk out onto the stage. Yeah, so we're here to announce a new Hearthstone expansion. It's called
Saviors of Coupon.
Rockstone. You're like, what's a Rockstone?
Doesn't make any sense, Raven. Quiet, please.
Neither does our game, so really, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense.
There we go.
It's Tom now going for a 212.
His last vestige.
It's sturdy, but there's no way to up its damage, which means FroStee kind of gets value trades.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a value trade.
As close as
level, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we could just see double mummy, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Take it out, easy peasy. I don't think that was. Oh no, yeah, I guess that was. Yeah, this is the correct way to do it. Well done, FroStee. Should have trusted in you.
Yeah.
And I think FroStee, even if he's messing up here, we can see there is no avenue for Tom back into this game.
Second FroStee plays any of the minions in his hand.
He's not even playing one sample, right? Yeah. There's just nothing.
Wow, and that's what you want in Grandmasters right now if you're FroStee, right? Game 1.
Yeah.
Destroyed my opponent. Like, you know, not even, I wouldn't even argue it was close. You just destroyed him after that brawl.
Well, sorry, correction. Game 2 destroyed my opponent. Game 1 miscued the deck.
Yeah, slight misplay, but still.
Honestly, for FroStee, this seemed like a blowout victory. It was not. This was entirely a result of his turn 4 play, where he opted to not play Restless Mummy on curve, which 9 times out of 10 against Priest is the correct play. Yeah, you just throw it down and you just win. But by developing his Acolyte and his 1-drops, which he knew that Tom would struggle to clear, he set himself up for a very strong brawl on the following turn. It was only really one inspired play that won FroStee the game, but that's often all it takes.
It's all you need, yeah. And of course there was an outcome where Tom could have won the brawl, but then there were the mummies to like back up and catch up with that game. We're going to go to I believe a very quick break while we start game number 2. We'll be right back. We're back from that very quick break just to make up some time while we were sorting out some of that admin issue a little bit earlier on. But we are going to go into game number 2, FroStee versus Tom. FroStee, I believe, is going to be on his Holy Wrath Paladin, and Tom locking in his Priest once again. But again, I feel like just an interesting matchup in that because Tom isn't running one Samdi, his late game often does not really exist. Or, okay. His late game recovery does not exist that well if the early game does not go well for him. And I feel like Paladin is equipped to shut down some early game of Priest if just inequality, Shrink Ray, timeouts to, you know, for any of the turns where you can't cover bases, seems like it should line up okay at least.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very reasonable matchup for the Paladin. I think you could argue that it's favored if you're playing very, very strong Paladin play, because Paladin, Holy Wrath OTK Paladin specifically, is one of the hardest decks to play in Hearthstone, I believe.
Ooh, subdue.
But as you can clearly see here, even with just a subdue in hand, there are the tools for Paladin to deal with what Priest can throw down, because obviously if they go wide, we know what Paladin can do. With Equality and Shrink Ray, they have the tools to be able to deal with these wide boards. And of course, if there's a single big minion that's trying to smack him in the face turn after turn, now Subdue can also take care of that.
Yeah, Paladin has one of the hardest removal in the game. I don't mean hard as in tough to do, I mean hard as in strongest. Like, it's just hard removal, or hard reduction at least, in the fact it's just Equality can just clear boards easily. Shrink Ray makes every minion, no matter what it is, a 1-1, and so on. So really, really, on paper, good game versus Priest. Tom is going to be looking to get off to a good start, and a good start he has. Tolve, and now a Blade Master with Regenerate if he really wants to push it. As the follow-up seems like a good opening, but Tom, I think, in this matchup needs more than a good opening.
He does. He may have just found it.
Do you think he goes for the inner fires now?
Well, I think he goes for the Circle of Healing and then turn after. Sure.
I'm just okay. So I'll rephrase my question.
Maybe.
Does Tom have to? Is it worth Tom threatening with minions, or does he have to wait and just surprise kill FroStee? Is more my question.
I think he should probably try and apply at least a decent amount of mid-game pressure, because unless he hits card draw cards, like obviously exactly Acolyte or Cleric, he does not have the liberty to play so slowly and greedily with his inner fires, especially as he has 2 of them. Like, if he had 1, you can make the argument for holding on to it to try and just get a surprise attack with Divine Spirit off the top. But in this instance, I definitely would like to see at least 1 from Tom.
And that's it. One thing I try to apply in some of the weirder matchups against Holy Wrath Paladin is they can draw their deck faster than I think any other deck in the game right now. And what you can slow them down with is by make them use other cards, right? Don't let them just play their 2-mana card that draws some cards, a 1-mana card. Like, make them do stuff. And if that is by threatening board, he's just eked out a Subdue now. So for all Tom knows, there was some card draw that was missed that turn. There's an Acolyte in hand that wasn't played because he made FroStee have to respect his board. We're going to see that once again with this Inner Fire follow-up.
Man, that was a tough turn from FroStee. I have to be honest, I think there I probably would have gone Coin Prismatic Lens, and it may have just been the play that lost the game rather than won it, because taking 4 damage there is a lot more than 1, especially if you don't necessarily find the answer for it the turn after.
Right. That's the problem. Any form of damage just gets you closer and closer to this turn I might die, so I have to play timeout.
Yeah, yeah. Which you really don't want to be in. That's where we saw, I remember specifically, Tyler was playing against Priest, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, and he used his timeouts very, very aggressively early on. And then later on, he just couldn't survive. There was no defensive maneuver good enough to keep him in the game.
Speaking of defensive maneuvers, there is now Shrink Ray. Going Consecrate if he really wants to. And you have to consider it with Shrink Ray.
Yeah.
Because if Silence, Divine Spirit, and a Fire come down on the Blade Master that you've got as a 1-1, you're dead. Obviously, Tom doesn't have tons of cards, but I just mean you can't always just Shrink Ray and be like, I'm safe, because you might not be.
I think in this instance it's reasonable to hold back on a full clear. Like, I think just Shrink Ray is fine, because if the Silence was there, I'm pretty sure it would have come down. Wow. deems it worthy. Just wants to set up for a better board clear on one of the coming turns instead.
Well, this turn draws cards and runs straight into the shrink rate conk anyway.
Yeah.
But Tom, not going to play more onto the board and no reason to. After seeing that timeout, just as much as FroStee's usage seems okay to me, it's just told Tom that FroStee does not have answers. Or he wants to bait more stuff, in which both of those responses are, just pass. You're clearly doing enough damage to make him fall. If you weren't doing enough damage, he wouldn't have cast timeout at all.
Yeah.
Oof. Wow. Just.
That's pretty big.
Clearing off the Acolyte, kill off the Blade Master. Now there's just a 6/6, but even that is... Oh.
Wow. Just
relatively close.
Yeah. Just
if he hadn't have killed the Blade Master, he would just be dead.
He would actually just be dead. Yeah. Clutch Elven Archer.
Still though, this game looks like it's accelerating pretty quick. And again, due to Tom's lack of card draw at the moment, and then also just the knowledge that there is no Bon Samdi, then I feel like this game might only have a couple more turns left. One way or the other. Either FroStee just deletes Tom's board in his hand, or Tom just gets this.
And as we can see, FroStee has many ways to do that. He's been very greedy with that over the last few turns, because he, I imagine, is thinking Tom's hand is a little bit beefier than what we're looking at.
Oh, could he have actually got away with a Shivala that turn? This turn?
How? He can't even play it.
Oh yeah, he won't be able to thingy, will it? Yeah, it'd be one off. Yeah. I was just trying to work out whether he could ever, because in this matchup you don't necessarily need to Holy Wrath your opponent. You can actually just stabilize with Shivalas on the board, right? Yeah. If you just leave a Shivala on the board, what does Tom do?
Yeah.
Like, and you're normally getting good trades as long as the minion isn't like a 20/20, obviously. But Paladin's very good at that. So I think going forward, FroStee could be setting up for a reasonably solid Shivala. Because next turn he can make it Suedo free, basically.
Yes. Tom here.
With
the classic one-off lethal. Does he just go for it at this point?
Make him do something, right?
So.
Shrink Ray, Shivala, Shuffle.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's starting to look nice for FroStee now. And again, this is the downside.
Look at FroStee's face, the eyebrows. We're just like, okay, 1 health, I'm fine. Play that Shivala. Surely, right? He's already used a Holy Wrath, so he doesn't need to shuffle twice.
So what's the full play? Shrink Ray, first of all, do you trade in first?
No. If you want to draw, he doesn't need to draw an extra card, right?
So Shrink Ray.
You can leave the Acolyte on the board.
Shivala, Shuffle. Can you fit in anything else? Like you could go Shrink Ray, Prismatic Lens, then Shivala Shuffle.
Sure. I don't really care what you fit in as long as Shivala hits this 1/1 and you heal for 7. Well, is it better for him to Flash of Light then instead? I guess the heal doesn't matter. He never dies. He never dies.
I mean, you never die at 1.
Oh yeah, Tom's not playing the Stormwind Knight, right?
Yes.
Yes.
He's not.
He's not. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
I'm
trying to remember who's playing Stormwind Knight and who isn't. Yeah, I love this turn from FroStee. This, I feel, locks out a large point of the game.
Yeah, again, it doesn't really matter. I guess, actually, if he'd gone for Prismatic Lens, then maybe swaps Shivala and Holy Wrath, but he could have gone for it first, so even that's not a consideration. It just doesn't.
I mean, he's drawn cards. I think, you know what? I think what this does, plays more minions. So he can trade more stuff.
Yeah,
right? He has more stuff to trade into minions. FroStee does not need card draw this game.
Okay,
he has it, right? He has card draw, he has heal. He's got the Flash of Light and the Lens for this turn, which he can always play because he never dies that turn. I think FroStee's locked this one.
Man, this series from FroStee was just clean.
He said he's been practicing this deck a lot, and I think it shows because I like these turns. Like, these turns are pretty solid. Maybe the question into... All right, second try. Maybe you question the timeout turn.
Yeah.
But
I think it was fine.
But again, like I've said before, as FroStee takes the series, if you start getting overly greedy when if you think you can time out now and make it till later, great. But when you start getting overly greedy, you just die sometimes. And nothing frustrates me more. We're going, you know what? I think I can survive, so I'll do it next. Boom, I'm dead. I'm like, I just lost a game in Grandmasters. What's going on? I think that's very frustrating. But congratulations to FroStee. Very quick series there. And, making up some of the time we lost because of his slight mistake. But it's okay. We'll let him off this once. Literally in the rules to let them off once. But yeah, really solid series there. And once again, he told me he just wants to fighting off relegation. That's priority number one. Top 4 would be fantastic. But taking a win over Tom, who again historically has done well in Grandmasters, means FroStee is closing that gap and also just pushing himself further away. And very important as well is because one of the matches this weekend is Patra and Blitzchung,
right.
One of them has to lose, which keeps FroStee further away if he wins, because obviously they're two of the players that are currently below him.
Yep.
So one of them is a forced loss this weekend at least.
And what that also means with Tom taking a loss here to FroStee is the 3 players that we had in first place in Division B, which we'll get to take a look at the end of the day, in Dawn, Glory, and Tom, have all lost, which means it's getting pretty close to like a 6-way tie now, with FroStee, I believe, a tiny step behind the likes of Staz. But still, for the most part, very, very close. It's really just with Patra and Blitzchung down at the bottom. But at the same time, if Blitzchung takes a win over Patra later on today, I believe in our next match, then he all of a sudden is only 1 win away from FroStee, and it's Patra right down at the bottom. But if Patra wins, then either of them could still claw their way up out of relegation.
It's literally all going to come down to next week.
It really is.
It's crazy. So, yes, stay tuned in. Don't go away yet. But if you're going to watch a week of Hearthstone, next week is just going to decide so much.
Yeah.
I believe we've got FroStee hanging by for an interview. Are you there, mate? Can you hear us?
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
There he is.
Okay, so first off, of course, congratulations on the win. It felt very clean. Because we have talked to you a little bit earlier in the week, I just want to ask you to talk about why Holy Wrath Paladin this week and not others? And are you feeling happy about that choice now?
Yeah, I'm feeling really happy about the Holy Wrath Paladin for the most part. I was really shaky on the idea of bringing it before because I wasn't quite sure on the matchups, and it really felt like I needed to flesh out, just an understanding of the matchups before I started bringing it again. Because last time we brought it was a completely different meta, and this time around, I had to do my research again, make sure that it was actually a good time to bring it. And yeah, I put in the work this week. I've been playing off stream a lot. I've been playing it. I think I didn't touch Priest at all this week, so Tom secretly banning it has been a godsend for me.
Ultimate plans.
Because I've been spending so much time playing this Holy Wrath Paladin.
Yeah, and I was talking to you about in terms of just how you're feeling overall going into this weekend. As obviously, you're not top of the division. You're on the lower half, and you were saying you just really don't want to be relegated. Were you feeling? Was this the most pressure this weekend you were feeling going into it?
Well, yeah. I mean, nobody wants to get relegated, and all it would take would just be one bad week. Or, something like that. And, things just not matching up the right way. And then suddenly I find myself at the bottom of the standings. So this win means a lot, simply put, It's a huge relief to have a bit of a safety net there rather than just being always at the precipice of, being out.
So how are you dealing with the ever-looming threat of relegation? Because we've seen a lot of the players, I think, who are like traditionally the most calm Hearthstone players or seem very collected in tournament play are really starting to struggle. You always look very calm on stream, but I think that may just be you. You have resting cool face. Are you actually dealing with it well, or are you finding the stress a lot?
Oh, well, that's a relief to hear that I have a really good resting face, because, I mean, on the inside,
Screaming.
I must put on a really good facade because, immediately while I'm thinking about all of this, I'm going, oh God, oh God, oh God. What if things go badly now? All right. What if I'd thrown that Paladin game where I was left at 1 health there? Yeah. Something along those lines, what if I was supposed to clear that turn, sort of a thing? Mm-hmm. Those things, they get to me quite a bit. And I know that I'm good at resetting and, just trying to take things back to square one. But in the moment, I find that I do actually struggle quite a bit with tilt. So, I mean, if I have a good resting face, then yeah, awesome. I don't know.
As long as people think you're calm, it's just like casting. As long as people think we know what we're talking about, then we get away with it.
Well,
But
cat's out of the bag now, so what's the point anymore?
I just like the secret out. It's my bad.
That does not reflect me, by the way.
Oh,
I know
okay.
exactly what I'm talking
Wait,
about.
it doesn't? Oh, no. I just want to ask you one final question as well. Just in terms of this week, as we are ticking on through Grandmasters, we are coming to the end where the scores are just going to stop at some point and decisions are going to be made. Was there any consideration to bring a lineup or even just a specific deck that's kind of outside of the top X decks in the meta right now? Were you thinking about anything else, bringing anything a bit spicy? Or were you just going for the these are decks that I think are good and I'm confident in, and that should just be enough, even though, you know, you look at Control Warrior, you look at Holy Wrath Paladin, you look at Shaman, these are all decks that everyone are playing.
Yeah, so pretty much my line of thinking here is that I want to be playing decks the best that I possibly can. So I want to play the best decks that I possibly can and try to get the best win rate with the decks that I possibly can. So I've been having looks outside at other decks, but mostly when it comes down to it, I look at the rest of the decks that I could be bringing and say, well, what does this do instead of a warrior or a paladin or a shaman or something like that? I just feel like it's very hard to justify that sort of a thing. So while APAC may be, fairly cookie cutter when it comes to, bringing Huntrace's lineup every single week, it's just for the most part that I feel like I don't want to say like I want to try to be with the in crowd sort of a thing, but I just want to play the best decks that I possibly can. And, if that means that I'm copying Huntrace's lineup, then,
so be it.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, that seems reasonable enough to me. And it's worked so far. So, again, we'll let you go. But congratulations on this win, mate. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so FroStee being, I think, making some good decisions there. I think, again, there's just, it feels weird to say FroStee's not played Holy Wrath Paladin until this weekend, week 6, when he played it. I think he was one of the first players to bring it in the previous season. Obviously, different meta and different different format, but I think it paid off. And I think, again, he showed some pretty, although the game was short, showed just some pretty solid play overall, not getting overly flustered at, okay, I need to play right now. It's like, oh, I can use timeout here and try and move things along a little bit later.
Yeah, I think in play it was, or in game there, it was just very, very clean from FroStee. Not all too many difficult decisions, but the ones he was presented with, I think he played well. But it speaks interestingly to how emotions can affect just the pure logic that comes into play with Hearthstone. Because obviously every week you should just be bringing the lineup that is most likely to make you win. But when you're facing down relegation, you start wondering, a risky lineup, even if it is the best lineup that I could bring, you feel like it could go wrong, so you just want to go for the standard stuff, even if that's maybe not technically the correct way to go.
It really interests me because we've seen players in earlier weeks, of course, bring Quest Paladin, and it's stomped.
Yeah.
But that is not a standard deck, right? That is not a deck you just queue on ladder every day. So I think mentally it's hard to make that decision, and making that decision and it being the right decision is the hard part of submissions. But anyway, we'll stop chatting on and move on to the next match of the day, and it is